Summer is coming to a close, autumn vibes are definitely in the air, and the drought here in Ohio continues. We haven't had enough rain to speak of in weeks. We're being forced to feed hay to Hero because our pastures simply won't grow. We're keeping the garden and all of our young pine trees and fruit trees alive by hand watering every day. I've always been grateful for all the rainfall that we get here in Ohio, but the past few months have deepened my appreciation for our wet climate. Thankfully, our garden harvests haven't suffered too much from the drought since our plants were well established before the worst of it hit. I am a bit worried though about a few things that are left in the gardens, so we're going to go ahead and finish our harvesting today.
There are still a few crops to harvest yet in the garden, but we're going to start with the sweet potatoes first today. We're a little bit worried about them because it's been hard to keep up with all the watering, and the sweet potatoes may or may not have gotten neglected a little bit. It'll be a big relief once these sweet potatoes are out of here so that we don't have to keep up with watering them. And we do know that there are sweet potatoes in here. We've kind of looked on top here and we can see that there's sweet potatoes in here, but we don't know if they got as big as usual because of the lack of water.
We like to snip off all the foliage before we try to dig the potatoes. It just makes it so much easier because there's so much foliage. Pretty sure these potatoes here are Covington. So we planted Covington, Goldmar, and Bush Puerto Rico this year. The Bush Puerto Rico and the Goldmar were both experiments, and so honestly I'm a little nervous. In the past we've had issues with our sweet potatoes having this weird fungus on their skin, but since we've been putting them in raised beds, we haven't been having that issue. I think it's because the raised beds drain so much better, so hopefully we won't have any fungus issues this year. Plus it was really dry.
One of the biggest reasons we started homesteading was for our family. We both grew up in the country and we wanted our kids to have that experience as well. I love looking out our bedroom window and seeing our kids out doing their morning chores. I see them growing up to be responsible people. I see them getting that healthy dose of fresh air and sunshine every morning, and I see them learning to care for something other than themselves. One of the biggest problems in our world today is it's full of selfish people. Now, our kids aren't completely cured of selfishness, but learning to look out for something other than yourself goes a long way. They're also learning to be very observant and in tune with their surroundings. They notice if something's not right with the animals, they take note of what the weather is like, and they learn to deal with how it affects their lives. They recognize how the weather affects the land. Rain makes things grow. Drought does the opposite. Rain might make so you can't play what you want to outside, but you learn to appreciate it when your food depends on it. What is this?
Ah!
It's a loofah. People ask if they complain about their chores. Sure, they do sometimes. Anything becomes normal and boring and sometimes downright annoying, but they do enjoy some of it and they take pride in it. And besides that, they get plenty of time to play on our homestead. 5.5 acres isn't huge, but it's plenty of space to be wild and free and use your imagination. Hey, there was a mouse!
Oh my word.
There's like tunnels all along the edge of this raised bed. This must be the mouse raised bed. That's disgusting.
Did you just, oh. Okay. Oh man.
Sorry. They're also learning other valuable lessons, like how to work together to get a job done, and that rewards start with a risk. We plant seeds together in the spring, we work together throughout the season, we're sad together when something fails, we celebrate together when we get a good harvest, and together we enjoy that satisfying feeling you get when you sit down to a meal that you grew with your own 2 hands.
Oh my word. So honestly guys, these potatoes, the last 2 beds have not been looking good. They have split open. I don't know exactly why. I don't know, does this have to do with drought? They also have that weird thing on their skin. Definitely edible, they'll store for a while, not the greatest. That first bed, I had my hopes way up. But then these next beds that were the experiment beds, I am not impressed. It's pretty discouraging, but I'm sure we'll still have enough food. I might just have to cook some of these up and freeze them or something. We haven't had disease issues or cracking and splitting issues since we had them in the raised beds. I also think part of this might have been my fault. I may have left them out too long. I just figured that they would be fine. Some people leave their sweet potatoes out till the frost kills them. I've never had success doing that, but I didn't think I was late this year, but I guess I probably was, so
Just a quick note here, we did a little research and it looks like the cracking in the sweet potatoes could have been caused by them getting really dry from not getting rain for quite a while, and then all of a sudden soaking up a lot of water from Michelle thinking, oh, I need to water the sweet potatoes, putting the sprinkler on them, and them really getting soaked. That could have been part of it, might not have been all of it, but that's something to consider.
One thing I do want to clarify is that just because a variety doesn't work well for me doesn't mean it's a bad variety. It could just be it doesn't work well in our zone or our area. These Bush Puerto Rico ones were definitely an experiment. So the Covington ones that I plant every year did really, really well. So I'm definitely not bashing the variety itself. I think it just didn't work for our soil and our climate. We're going through a season change right now here in our homestead, so my rhythms and my routines are all changing. I'm not a person who loves change. When there's unknowns or chaos of any kind, I can tend to get a little bit agitated. One thing that I have figured out that really helps me is to get input from an outside source, somebody who's unbiased, who can look in on my situation and just shed light on the things that I am struggling with. With all the things that I have going on in my life, stress and change happen quite often. I have 4 kids, a marriage, I help run a business, I have a homestead where we grow our own food. So therapy has been something that has helped me so much over the last decade. Just a few years ago, I was taking a handful of supplements every single day just to try to be able to do life. And what really moved the needle for me was taking care of my mental health and getting on top of my stress and lifestyle. BetterHelp is the sponsor of today's video, and since it's an online-based therapy, you can talk to a therapist via a phone call, messaging, or video chat. It's so simple, especially if, like us, you live out in the country and you have to drive far to get anywhere. You just go to their site and fill out a questionnaire, and they will match you with a therapist in as little as a couple of days so that you can get started quickly. And if something's not working out with the therapist you were matched with, you can always switch. Some of you have had questions or concerns about BetterHelp. First of all, they carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified. Their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions, and they've helped over 4 million people. If you have any concerns about how they treat their therapists, or about the issue that happened with the FTC a few years ago, you can look in the description box and we'll link an article that will answer all of your questions. Use our link to go to their site for a special discount, betterhelp.com/morethanfarmers, or you can choose our channel during sign up and get 10% off your first month of therapy.
We want to go over the process of curing these sweet potatoes before we harvest the carrots, but before we do that, there's something else I need to do out here real quick. I just recently moved the chickens to a new spot in this pasture here, but I'm gonna move them again because I want to be able to move Hero into this paddock. This drought just keeps on going and there's just no grass anywhere else in the pasture. There's a little bit in here. A lot of this is weeds, but there is still a little bit of grass that he could clean up yet. So I'm gonna get the chickens out of the way. I don't want them in here while he's in here because I'm afraid he'll push their fences and pens and stuff over. Of course, besides homesteading for a good life for our children, we're also doing it for the food. The vegetables that come straight out of the garden, or the meat, milk, and eggs that come from animals raised on pasture and fresh air are full of nutrients, and the taste is out of this world compared to what you pick up from the grocery store. When it comes to money, we've been dirt poor for most of our married life, but the food we've had on our table has been plenty, and it's food fit for a king. There have been times when a crop failed or we ran out of something like beef, and our meals would lack variety for a season. We've gotten pretty sick of just eggs every morning for breakfast or sweet potatoes at every single meal, but it's times like those that have taught us to be truly thankful for a good harvest. It's also times like those that we learn to get very creative. Hey, buddy. You can tell that he really likes getting some of that grass there. In about a decade of homesteading, this is the earliest that I've ever had to start feeding hay, which is kind of discouraging, but in homesteading, I guess that's just kind of how it goes. Some years we have a bumper crop with the sweet potatoes, some years they're not as good. And some years with the white potatoes, it's better than others, and it's just how it goes, and it seems to kind of even out. That's one thing that I like about homesteading, is that you learn to roll with things like that. You learn to take life as it comes and deal with the ups and downs. 20. 160 pounds.
I'm gonna start by laying out the nice ones. I'll be honest, guys, I was pretty discouraged this morning about some of our sweet potato harvest. The first bed was super nice. If they all would have been like the first bed, I would be over the moon. And I'm still not complaining. These are gonna feed us all winter and it'll all be fine. I think they should have been dug a little bit sooner. And I also think that the drought did really affect them. There were quite a few of the sweet potatoes, especially the new kinds that we weren't used to digging, that were really deep down in the soil. And so they were hard to dig up. The soil was really hard and compacted because it's so dry. And the potatoes were long and deep down, and so they broke off. That was really discouraging because a sweet potato that's broken off is not going to last very long in storage. Some of them, I do think the wounds will heal over, but a lot of them are gonna have to be cooked up right away and frozen or just used up right away. The potatoes that did really well for me were these Covington potatoes right here. Those are my Old Faithful. They always do really well in our climate, in our soil. They turned out spotless, they turned out perfect, but unfortunately I didn't do as many Covington this year as I wish I would have. I'm gonna be real upfront with you guys about sweet potato curing. I am definitely not a professional when it comes to curing sweet potatoes. You're supposed to cure sweet potatoes at around like 80 degrees, 80 to 85 degrees, and then it's supposed to be really humid. If you cure at those temps, your sweet potatoes are supposed to last for a very long time. The skins will thicken and they just last for a long time, but I don't have a place in my house that is 80 degrees and really humid. And so I just lay them down here in a single row in my basement and let them just sit out for a week or two. The skins harden really nicely. And I've never had issues with my sweet potatoes spoiling before the winter is over. Don't get me wrong, I'm not necessarily recommending that you not follow the rules of curing things like sweet potatoes. Basically for us, this has worked really well. We haven't had any issues with them rotting when I cure them this way. And so this is kind of what we're doing at this point because I don't feel like coming up with a special setup just to cure my sweet potatoes. I'm not actually laying these out in the root cellar because the root cellar temps are actually pretty cool right now. And I want these to be in as warm of a place as possible. And down here in the basement with the freezers and stuff running, it does warm up a little bit. So this is, I'm just gonna call this good. It'll work fine. I think that the potatoes that we're not especially thrilled about were the Goldmar. I think those were the ones that did the most poorly for us. The Bush Puerto Rico ones, I feel like those did okay, but they did have some fungus issues. These are the Bush Puerto Rico, and you can tell like the skin is really rough. They had some cracking. They're still gonna be edible. They will last for a while, but I'm gonna use these first because often if they have like a skin issue like this, they won't cure properly and they will not last for as long. But then these Covington ones here, all of these that look really nice, those will literally store until next spring. So next year, I definitely think that I'm just gonna stick with my Vardaman and Covington. Those have done really well for me in the past, so I think I'm just gonna stop experimenting and just work with those next year.
We're all starving, so we're going to use those fresh sweet potatoes to make some sweet potato fries, and then we'll get out to harvesting the carrots.
It's getting late, but we still have one task that I really badly want to get done today. I really want to get these carrots harvested. It's really dry, as we've said 100 times in this video, and it's been taking a lot of time for me to water these really well. Not every day, but close to every day, and they still, it looks like, are pretty dry. So I want to get these out of the ground, get that off of my mind. We got these planted a little bit late because of an accident that happened earlier on in the planting season. I wish I could give you an update on my rows of carrots, but Cody has a story to tell.
I just realized that I did something very dumb. And if you're an avid watcher of our channel, you'll probably know what it is before I even tell you, since I'm standing in this spot in the garden. Michelle is gone right now. She went to help her sister move in Kansas. And while she was gone, she wanted me to plant the onions that we got in. And so I did. I planted this double row of onions right here. Did a really good job too. She wanted me to for sure remember that there were tiny onion plants planted next to the big onions there and not to hoe those in or anything. And I remembered that. I didn't touch those onions. I planted this in a nice double row next to it. Everything was all good. And I had noticed that this area of the garden here was really weedy and I wanted it taken care of. So I had Izzy come out here with a wheel hoe and take out all the weeds. Totally forgot that we had just planted carrots here like a week ago. So Izzy just totally wheel hoed all those carrots. Michelle's gonna be home here in like less than an hour and I think she's gonna kind of flip out. Hopefully she'll be happy for the onions that are planted.
So this is a little bit later than we would normally harvest carrots. I am hoping they'll look nice. I'm hoping for some big carrots because the big ones store a lot longer. Oh dear.
Stumpy.
What is with that? It's like square. We'll just ignore these. Those are nice. Those are very nice. Like these here. I'm not loving like if they get like too fat, but I mean that will store forever.
I'd say they were probably in the ground a little bit too long.
A little bit too long, maybe, but then these right here are perfect. So I think it'll come out well. And
I think in previous years we dug them a little sooner and they didn't get as giant as that, but then the smaller ones were really small.
Okay, so you get the carrot and I want you to leave a little stump, just like that. You don't want to cut it down into the carrot or it'll spoil in the fridge, okay?
Digging or pulling carrots is probably my favorite thing to do in the garden. I said this last year, I think, but I just love that pop when they come out.
These carrots are the last of our staple crops to be brought in from the garden. Because of all the watering that I've been doing, it's an even bigger relief for me than usual to be bringing in the last large harvest. Lately I've been feeling a pull to be indoors more. I feel like now that all the important harvests are in, I can turn my attention more fully to shifting from summer routines into fall routines. For me, this includes focusing more on cooking hearty meals from all the garden abundance, deep cleaning the house that's been horribly neglected while I've been gardening and preserving, swapping wardrobes to cool weather clothes for the kids, and also getting school books and schedules ready for homeschool. Most kids have started school by now, but I've been waiting until the outside work is done to add another thing onto my to-do list. I've been homeschooling now for 5 years, and I found that I do a better job of being patient with my kids if I can give them my full attention while they're doing school, which is why I wait until October to start. I do still have a bed of carrots and lettuce that needs to be watered outside, but other than that, I'm done with my gardening for the year. And while I'm sad that I won't be outside quite as much in the coming weeks, I also love how the distinct seasons in Ohio keep life interesting. Variety is the spice of life, and I genuinely enjoy what each season has to offer.
Exactly what is that one doing? Oh my word. It got late and we lost light out in the garden, but we came in with 175 pounds of carrots. Couldn't be more pleased with this harvest. I am just going to put all of these carrots into grocery bags. I tie them up and then I tape all the holes shut. When I first started storing carrots like this in the refrigerator, I noticed that if the bags weren't closed really well, the carrots inside got kind of wrinkly and rubbery because they were exposed to air. So I started taping these bags shut. This is just my method. I haven't actually seen anyone else do this. This is just how I've done it for years. And these carrots will last for months and months in these bags. You definitely don't want to wash your carrots. If you can get by without washing your carrots, just brush the dirt off and put them in here. I have in the past had to wash carrots because they came out of the ground super muddy or something. If you do that, you want to let them dry completely so that they don't get wet and soggy inside the bag. That'll just make them get slimy really fast. In late winter, sometimes carrots will get a little bit slimy. They might start to sprout on the top. Just because your carrots start to sprout a little bit or get a little bit slimy or weird in the bags does not mean they're inedible. I just take them out, scrub them up really good, and you would never know the difference. To see how we use these carrots and all the other things that we have in our cold cellar, watch this video right here.
While Michelle finishes the carrots out there in peace, I'm in here with the kids And we're gonna have some cupcakes. These are leftovers from some that Michelle made for Tirza for her birthday last week. So go ahead and just spam the comments with happy birthday, Tirza. Mike, the vibe.